and welcome to the Thursday, October 27th of 2022 community call. We got quite a few guests and a few announcements for you today. In that agenda, we're going to be talking about the Neon database, which is our new integrated partner for Postgres. We'll be talking about Cockroach and Athena, instant GraphQL access to both of those data sources by yours truly, and also David Mullaney. Then filter-based aggregations. David will be talking about that too, so you get to hear from him twice today. And then role-based allow lists from Rahul, and then Prometheus Community Edition from Andreas. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and dive right in, and we'll get an introduction and update on what the Neon database is and how we're integrating with it from Vaishnavi.
Hey folks. Okay. Adrian, I think I need the share permissions. Okay, all right. Got it. Okay, all right. Hey everyone. So as you've seen our recent announcements, we've launched the Neon Postgres database integration on Hasura Cloud. So when we started off, we had this idea of making onboarding and user understanding of Hasura absolutely really simple and absolutely intuitive on Hasura Cloud. So until now, we had the Heroku Postgres as an integration that a lot of our users used to get started on Hasura Cloud. And recently, with Heroku's announcement of the deprecation of their free tier resources, which included their Postgres database, we decided to take this opportunity and make the workflow even more intuitive and native to Hasura Cloud's onboarding experience. So we partnered with our friends at Neon, and we've built this one-click integration that enables users to get started with a free Postgres database and start querying their Hasura GraphQL API all in under 2 minutes, right? So without further ado, let's go ahead and see what this integration looks like. So I have a new account created on Hasura, and I'm going to go ahead and launch console. So a new user to Hasura is going to see this particular workflow, right? So at the top level, they're going to see what Hasura in a big picture looks like. And right here, the user will be able to create and connect a Neon database. So just give me 1 second. I think you'll need to can you all see the pop-up as well?
No.
Not yet? Okay, give me 1 sec. I think I'll need to.
There it is.
It's that? Okay, awesome. So once you click on connect a Neon database, to make this even simpler, what we've done is we've integrated with Neon so that you can continue with your Hasura account itself. What this will do is this will create a account on Neon with your Hasura account, and you'll be able to authorize to create databases on your Neon account, and that's it. Right, so you this will create a Neon database and also connect it to your Hasura account here. So what we are additionally doing is, in order to make it super simple for users, we've also installed a sample schema here, which is the customer order sample schema, and the user will also be able to run a sample query right from here, right? So that's it. This is all done. So I've already run the sample query, and this is the sample response that you see on the Neon database that is connected, right? So this is what a new user to Hasura sees. Now, for all of our users that want to connect a new Neon database, a new free Neon database, they can do that from here, right? So now I've already logged into Neon from Hasura. And what this will do is it will not ask for any other permissions, because we've already logged in and allowed. it's already created a database right from here. It's just absolutely just a one-click database creation and connection. So this is a database that is created and connected to your Hasura. So this is the first one that we created, and this is the second one that we created from our Connect database workflow. Now, additionally, what this also does is you can go to the Neon console right from Hasura console and check out all the databases that are created and manage your databases here. Right. So this is the Hasura Neon integration. Let's go back. Yes, so a couple of other things that I wanted to touch upon is with Heroku's latest announcement on deprecation of their free tier resources, we have also deprecated our free tier integration from Hasura console. So if you see here, and you try to connect a new database. Earlier, we had creating a free Heroku database from here. So that is now replaced with creating and connecting a Neon database. So what this means for existing users is that if you have a free Heroku database connected to your Hasura project, you will need to either upgrade to a paid plan or move to a different database, right? So we've added additional details of what needs to be done. And if you already have a paid Heroku database that is connected to your Hasura account, you will not need to do anything else. One additional thing that I wanted to point out is, so you still will be able to connect to your existing Heroku databases from here, from the integration section, right? So you will be able to log in onto Heroku and connect existing databases right from your Hasura Cloud dashboard. So a couple of things that I wanted to mention are we've made this super easy and also provided a couple of ways in which you can move from Heroku data, your existing Heroku databases to other databases in case you do not want to upgrade on Heroku itself. So if you go to the documentation, I will share a lot of this as well. So we've listed out all of the DBaaS vendors which currently work out of the box with Hasura. So you can go check this out. And also specifically for Heroku, we've specified migration guides that are Heroku specific and also general migration guides for all of these databases that work with Hasura. So please go ahead and try out the Neon database integration and also check out additional resources here. So this is what we had on Neon integration. And one other thing that I did want to point out is if you're interested in trying out and previewing our upcoming features, I'm going to be sharing a form. Please do fill out your details, and we're going to be using this exclusively for product feedback itself. So look forward to chatting with you all. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Ashmi. That was the Neon database, the new integration. It's looking really nice. I myself am stoked about it, as I lost my poor Heroku databases, but that's okay. I'll make do. And next up, we're going to get an introduction to the new Cockroach support from David Mullaney. This is also another pretty exciting feature, and there's a lot of capabilities inherent in this feature. So I'm going to hand it over to David.
Thanks, Adrian. Just got to make sure I unmute myself. Just an introduction to Cockroach DB in case people in the community are not familiar with it. It's an up and coming and very popular distributed SQL database. It's founded by some of the original founders of Spanner at Google. And it has a lot of differentiating features that make it a unique distributed SQL database, and it has Postgres wire compatibility, which is why it was such a attractive partner for us, as well as in the community, both their community and ours. There's been requests for it and for a long time, and a lot of support for adding this database. One of its differentiating features is that it offers like a free trial for a distributed database, which is kind of unheard of. And it also has an open source version of itself, as well as a cloud and enterprise version similar to Hasura's offering. When is it a good choice to consider Cockroach DB? It's well suited for applications that require reliability and availability of correct data and millisecond response times across multiple regions. And so a lot of organizations find that as they grow over time, that their data operational needs evolve, and eventually the databases that they're currently using don't fit their needs. What does Hasura and Cockroach DB kind of bring together? As we stated earlier, instant GraphQL and REST APIs and all the features that come with Hasura, like role-based authorization, advanced security and performance with rate limiting, allow lists, and caching. So moving on to exactly what is being released on Monday is the plan to release version 2.15, and with that, Cockroach DB support will be part of that, and it will be available to the Hasura Community Edition, Cloud, and Enterprise Edition. In this first release, it will be labeled as beta for now, and we'll be releasing queries and mutations with plans to add subscriptions and UDF support in the near future. The reason why it's in beta right now is it is new, but also the minimum version requirement for Cockroach DB is version 22.2, which is currently their beta, and it's tentatively scheduled for mid to late November, at which point we're hoping to switch our integration to GA. And as I said, between now and then, we're looking to add subscriptions and UDFs, and as well as get as much feedback as we can from the field about how people plan on using Hasura with Cockroach DB as a distributed database, and kind of how they're going to pair Hasura with the distributed nature of Cockroach DB. Just kind of reiterating, like, why do people migrate to these databases? Yugabyte is a similar flavor to Cockroach DB, but again, there are like shortcomings that come up with Postgres or MySQL and other databases that eventually, as like, you just run into these walls that end up, with just being bogging down data engineers, where they're making replica sets and sharding, and it's very manual in some of these databases, where Cockroach DB makes it very automatic, and both their open source and their cloud versions have unique features that really lower the total effort and total cost of ownership over time when you hit these kind of operational needs. It's also, if you're trying to modernize your technology and shift to the cloud, is another reason you would do it. Yeah, and you find that your databases don't fit your operational needs. You might have made a decision based on old information, or it just might have been a bad decision. And Cockroach DB has a lot of features that allow you to, even if you're not utilizing all of their features at the beginning, they're very cost efficient. And then you can kind of rest assured that, like, if your operational needs change in the future, they have the features that that will help you address them. And here's some just details about like what Postgres, what some of these features look like in Postgres versus Cockroach DB. And the theme here really is that there's a lot of things that Postgres either doesn't have, or it's a manual process, or there's limits that you eventually run into. Whereas Cockroach DB makes those things very automatic and give you kind of give you more tunability, rather than tooling and manual processes that you have to proactively take in order to keep your database operationally efficient and resilient. So this is just an example of just, the distributed database and the phase shift that one would go over. If you incorporate a distributed database, there's only one area of availability, and then you kind of scale out to more. But then there's features within that where, like, you can fail over if one of these things goes down, and you can also route based on kind of operational load and performance. But they also have interesting features like geo data routing and stuff like that allow you to kind of fine tune where data comes from. So you get like features like edge data kind of baked into your database platform. So in this first release, as I mentioned, I'm just going to talk over this video because I am conscious of time. We have a lot to review during this call. In this first release, we're only supporting open source version of Cockroach DB, which you can set up locally to kind of kick the tires and start working with it. And in the docs on Monday, you'll see a easy to install like manifesto. So you can Docker compose up and you'll get a Cockroach image and a Hasura image running locally. And then from there, you can connect Hasura to your local Cockroach DB image. We also added some sample data that you can populate in Cockroach DB that just has some relationships and mutations. We'll probably evolve that to include sample data for other use cases specific to Cockroach DB. For this particular instance, for the open source version, it's a simple Postgres connection string that you use. For the cloud version, there is some nuances involving certificates and root certificates that will need to be set up. So when we release, before we release GA and start supporting the Cockroach DB cloud, we will include documentation and have a demo on how to set that up. So if you see here, this is just kind of boilerplate features that we know exist in Hasura, where you can track tables. In this case, the data was already uploaded to Cockroach DB when I started it. And then we're going to just show querying relationships and then a mutation where we delete one of these articles that's in this table. Yeah. So if there aren't any questions, I guess we can move on. I think I got to throw it back to Adrian.
Yep.
Who's going to talk about Athena, I believe, correct?
That is correct. And I'm playing the presentation, dual processing presentations right now. So I believe I put there's the slide deck. So I'm going to be talking to you about Athena. And this is going to be kind of a interesting way to present this. And as soon as I get the share of the video up, start speaking directly to it. I believe it's this, I hope. You should see a video of the Hasura console interface showing GraphQL. I'm going to hit play, it should start playing. And I'm just going to talk to you about what I'm doing here and what this is. The big thing I want to emphasize is by showing this, I am connected to an Athena database right now. Athena is an Amazon services product that basically lets you query over S3. So all your S3 buckets with all the stuff in them, whatever it is, you can query over it. And what we now provide here in just a matter of days is the ability to connect your Hasura instance to Athena, the service, and then query against it just like it's any of your other databases. So you'll be able to connect to it in your databases dialog, and boom, instantly you'll have the ability to query it. Now, the things that we've been working on to make sure that you can query it like this is a little tricky with Athena because it's not really your standard database. There's not particularly keys or certain other elements in that database like you would expect in Postgres or even, a distributed database like David was just talking about. So with that, we've had to work a little magic to make sure that you can get things like aggregates, be able to query against where clauses and things like that. So what I'm showing you here is it running against an Athena database and actually having those things execute. Like right here, I've just executed a simple single entity deep with a nested entity right below that, where we have the name of the artist and then the albums for that particular artist that are in the Athena database. And moving beyond that just a bit, let's speed this video up. There we go. I'm going to show you some aggregates, which have been a very interesting and cool accomplishment to be able to pull off for Athena specifically. Now, one of the other things as I'm pulling together this aggregate query to note is this is utilizing one of our new ways to connect new databases to Hasura. We've previously just released an alpha of the GraphQL data connectors SDK. And with that SDK, anybody is able to go and check out the SDK, download it. It's got Docker Compose to spin up an instance to try out. And you can look in the reference implementations that we have there for SQLite and also for a TypeScript in-memory reference type where it basically pulls it out of arrays that it sets up and stuff. But you can look at those reference implementations and actually implement against any database that you want, thus connecting any database to Hasura. This particular implementation is one that we've created for Athena to be able to enable that using that GraphQL data connectors SDK. And as you can see, I'm pulling together the average, max, and other parameters for the time of particular records. So you can see how long your records are and how short they are and organize them as such, order them by such in your Athena database. So this type of thing comes in really handy when you have just a plethora of things in your S3 database. You're trying to sort them, trying to make more sense of what's in there. And you need to take action on especially a large volume of files or blob type data that's in your S3 buckets. So as you can see right there, the aggregate has been executed and it is displaying the pertinent information. So there you have it. Athena up and running, connected to with Hasura, and issuing GraphQL queries and getting aggregate data back from those queries. So with that, our next person up is David again. He's going to talk now about filters based on aggregations of nested array fields. So very similar topic to what I just showed off. So with Athena though, check it out. I'll put a link in the chat if you want to sign up to make sure you're notified of exactly when we drop this and make it available, and you want to try it out, play with it, do whatever. We'd love to hear what your Athena use cases are and what you'd like to be able to do as far as connecting Hasura to it. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to David so he can talk to you about the filters. And thanks for listening to the Athena introduction. Cheers.
Thanks, Adrian. Just share my screen again. Yeah, so you actually saw Adrian do a little bit of this on Athena, but this is a new feature. I think it was released in .14, but it's GA already, so you can use it right now. But it's basically being able to return arrays or object space and filter based on aggregate conditions. So in this case, if you recall what you saw on Adrian's screen, he had a list of artists and albums and tracks. If you wanted to return only albums that have greater than 20 tracks or something, this is what the query would look like. I'm kind of moving on to this is generically how it's structured. With you have the table name, then aggregate, and then aggregate field, then the Boolean operations such as count, sum, average, etc., and then the value. And just to put in context, once again, this was a heavily requested feature from the community, over 100 reactions, and tons of people asking for it. And the reason why is because before you kind of there were ways to solve this problem. You could do it with kind of data modeling, go to a data engineer, say create a table for these aggregations or make a view and stuff like that. Or there was some complicated GraphQL you could write in some cases, but not all. And so the benefits really is just it's super simple now. And it really saves time, and you can address more use cases with just generic kind of GraphQL. And like I said earlier, reduces frictions between the app developers or GraphQL developers and the data engineering team, and lets you kind of, it adds to our value proposition of just accelerating your development process and addressing more use cases. Just to go over some of those, to put this in context, if you had a bunch of user data with shopping carts, like Amazon, and you wanted to get all the shopping carts for 20 more items, or if you wanted to say, I want to get the average review of restaurants, and you want to say, bring back all restaurants with average review over 4 stars, and you had to aggregate the average over everyone who reviewed it. For fintech, if you wanted to get the daily trading volume for the past 30 days, that's over averages over 1 million shares or something like that, or returns on all stocks that have paid over a certain number of dividends over the past years, and you have to aggregate that over a 5-year period. And then like real estate, zip codes with greater than X number of listings or new listings this month, or the average where the average listing price is less than X. So these aggregations and then returning only objects or objects that kind of meet these requirements that you specify. So you already kind of saw this in Adrian's example, but you can see here on the left, I have the same data with authors. This is authors and books, actually, not tracks. But you could say only return an aggregate field where you have greater than 1 article for the author. So someone who only has 2 or more, essentially. And then here I'm adding some more data to enrich the data and kind of show more information about these articles, or just the articles for each one of these authors. The other thing I would mention about this feature is it does follow our auth rules. So if you change your authorization so that someone doesn't have access to a row or column that is needed to perform this aggregation, or I should say columns mostly, it won't return a result. It will essentially fail. So this still follows all of our kind of authorization principles. And so here you can see, in this case, we just had a role that didn't have access to the articles. And so they weren't able to return a response in this case. So we think this feature, as we said, we're looking at the other features from the community that are highly requested, that we know will just add a lot of value and kind of accelerate your development, and looking for more use cases and examples of where we can really add value in this way. So we hope you guys appreciate this feature and enjoy using it, and appreciate any feedback.
Thanks, David.
Thanks.
Next up, we have Raul talking about row-based allow lists.
Thank you, Adrian. Great stuff, David. I'm very excited about that feature. I want to try it out myself. So what I'm going to talk about today is just making sure you're able to see my screen.
Yep, it's clear.
So what I'm going to introduce today is role-based allow list. Allow list has been a feature on the platform for a while, and you could do role-based allow list using the API or console, API or CLI. What we have introduced in 2.13 is role-based allow list on the console with a very new allow list manager, which will help you ease of use for role-based allow list management. As I mentioned, it's a paid feature in enterprise, self-host or cloud enterprise, and it gives the ability for you to control the exact set of queries that a client can request from a server. And why is it important? Because it provides that a more robust authorization mechanism for you and gives you that assurance to go to production. It's usually in production when this added level of security and the ability for your clients to not misuse the GraphQL API or the upstream server is where this feature really comes into play. And the apart from the added security mechanism, I think the value add here is the ease of use of just managing these different roles and collections, and I'll go through that in the demo. For you to enable the feature, you will have to either enable the Hasura GraphQL enable allow list environment variable, or do it via the enable allow list flag. Either of these ways, you could get your allow list feature started. And the recommended usage, just doubling down on that, is it's usually in production instances where we highly recommend using allow list to add that extra level of security. And the flexibility of configuration, as some of you already might know, is it's available in the CLI and the API. And as you are migrating from, let's say, sandbox to production, or the CLI and the API tools really help in managing these allow lists, because they really become difficult to manage at a certain level. So on the console, if you are migrating at a very a large scale, then the CLI and API tools are something which you can leverage. With that, let me jump into the demo and show this feature in action. So let's first make sure that this feature is enabled, and I'm using the cloud version. So you could do it via the Docker Compose file as well. But we see that the Hasura GraphQL enable allow list is true here. Next, let's go into the console. Right now, everything is available right now because I'm using the Hasura admin secret. And let me add a role in the data tab. So you see that I have added a user role in this. And if you have used allow list before, I just want to reiterate that you cannot add a new role directly from the allow list feature set. You will have to leverage the roles which have been created in the permissions tab in any of these tables. So we see that user role has been created for that table. Now you can leverage this role in the allow list. The other aspect which is helpful to see here is, so the whole point is that we are restricting certain queries for the client to access. And right now you can see that everything is available. The moment I uncheck the Hasura admin secret and start using the JOT token, you see that nothing is available on the Explorer side. So for curiosity's sake, what's happening under the hood, we can look at the JSON web token here, this thing here, and it is this token here, and it is telling me that the default role allowed is user. So we have the user role coming from the client using a JOT token. And as you can see, no schema is available for that particular role. And you could do evolve things with it. You could have multiple roles coming from the JOT token and define what you want them to see based on their access privileges. So with this, let's go into the allow list feature. It is on the top right corner, right next to security. And as I mentioned, this is a new allow list manager where you can create collections and you can add operations. So let's add operations so that we circumvent the problem of that user looking at not able to see any schema at all. So in the allowed query collection, let me add an operation. And this is where the ease of use really shines, is that you can quickly add queries you have saved, named queries, and introspection query will come on its own. So let's just add introspection query to this. And in the permissions tab, the user access has been defined. So if we go back to the API tab, you see that for the user, now the user is able to introspect, and there is some schema available for the user. So this was the, I would say, the basic setting of the allow list manager. Let me go build up on this use case. So if I go back to allow list, let me create a new collection. And in the new collection, let me add another operation. And this operation could be this query, which we are. So we have this operation now, and then in permissions, let me give access to the user. So you can see that you have different collections, and within each collection, you can go and move queries between collections or copy queries from one collection to another. all of it is available in the CLI and API as well for that programmatic way of managing it. But on the console, this is how we are doing this. So the moment I bring this query in, I want to show 2 use cases so that you're able to get a good sense of how to use this feature and how is it different from our existing permission framework. So let's look at a use case where no permission has been given for selecting either ID, name, or last seen from this table. But in the allow list, we are saying that this user can make this query. So let's see what will happen if we go to the API tab. If I run this query, it is giving me an error that the field ID is not found in type. This is a typical error you get when the permission check is met. And so right now, the check is at the permission, and then the query allow list permission checks have not been triggered yet because the fields are not available from the backend. So now let me enable the permissions from the data model itself. Got it. So now if we go back to the API tab and run this API, so I'm able to run this API because the permissions have been set from the backend, but the how to kind of leverage the so if I remove this name from here and run this again, you see that the error messages query is not allowed. So right now here, even though in the backend, all your permissions are set in a way that you can go and see all these 3 fields, but because of the allow list, we have explicitly mentioned that the query which is you can run from the client needs to have both ID and name. It is not allowing just a query with just ID. So hopefully you're able to see the different permutation combination and at which level the check is being made. So any questions or comments on this, but this is what I wanted to show you, that query allow list in action with now role-based access to it. Thank you.
Thanks, Rahul. As I'd mentioned in chat, I'll verbally say, if you have any questions or comments about any of this, please let us know in there and we will get it to the right person and get it answered and get that back to you. So far, Daniel, thank you for some of those excellent questions. I'm looking into the cockroach question, and yeah, we're definitely thinking about some of those things for Athena. So next up, we are going to get a presentation on Prometheus Community Edition from Andreas for all of your monitoring needs. And with that, Andreas, you're up.
Hello. So let me share my screen. So I don't have a nice presentation. I'm just, yeah, we'll show a little bit of what I've done there and how it can be used. So for the Hasura Community Edition, there are no Prometheus metric endpoints, and we are running the Community Edition in some of our toy projects and had some problems where we needed to figure out which queries are taking very long time and so on. So yeah, I looked into how can we get some metrics out of that, and the result of that is this Hasura metric adapter, which is, it basically works by parsing the output or the logs of Hasura most of the time, and it's also using the Meta API to run some collectors and like do some SQL queries against the Meta database. So to set this up, when you have in this Docker Compose file Hasura running, there's a Postgres database in here. There is, so this is like this is actually the exact state of the GitHub repo If a Postgres database, the Hasura container itself, we have Prometheus and Grafana running, and the Hasura metric adapter as well. And we changed the command of starting Hasura to basically make a FIFO in a shared volume that Hasura and the metric adapter share, and then have the GraphQL engine, so the community edition, T into this pipe, and also into the standard out, so we can still see the logs. So I have this Docker Compose file running currently, and the way that it looks is, so this is the output of the metric adapter. It goes through that and parses a couple of like basically the HTTP log entries. Thankfully, they're in JSON, so they're quite easy to parse. And we also built this demo dashboard, or this example dashboard, that basically uses these metrics. So if I know in the console, send, for example, this test query, when it's named test, ideally it should show up in here at some point. So it's only pulling it every 15 seconds, I think, Prometheus, but yeah, so it's all one request. Down here, I can't really see the data point, but test operation should be somewhere. So in the meantime, we can also look at, it should also be able to track subscriptions and active subscriptions and WebSockets. I think there's an issue open currently, but I didn't have time to look into it. So I'm still right now trying if it still works. So the WebSocket connection seems to be online. And again, after some time, it should be, once it fetches the matrix is here. We can already see one WebSocket connection operation is active and one WebSocket WebSocket is active. So ideally, yes, there it comes. Yeah, it tracks the health status of the instance, the metadata consistency, what's important to run it. So you need to enable the query log type, the HTTP log type, and for webhooks and WebSockets, also the webhook log and WebSocket log. And it needs to be at least log level info for these things to work. And the metric adapter itself, it basically needs to point to the pipe. This can also be a file, but it just will aggregate a lot of data over time. And it would also need the endpoint and the admin secret when it should, for example, also try to build up matrices for cron triggers, event triggers, and scheduled events. So these collectors actually come from another project that someone else built as well. And I basically ported these cron and event and scheduled event triggers from there to kind of make this a unified experience. And if you're interested in that, it's available on this GitHub page, basically in this repo. Yeah, that's all I have. Thanks.
Cool. Thank you very much, Andres. And with that, as I click on my buttons to share my presentation again, we have wrapped up all of our presentations and guest presentations. Thank you very much to all our presenters. If you, as I was saying, have any questions, pop them into chat. The next few minutes, we'll get you answers, but also a few community updates and how we can have ongoing conversations once this call is wrapped up. So the Data and API show, if you haven't seen an episode, definitely go check it out. They're great episodes about all sorts of topics related to Hasura and GraphQL in and of itself. You'll see myself probably along with Jesse and other speakers and guests. We have all sorts of topics there. It's a good show. Definitely suggest checking it out. Then also, we have our Enterprise GraphQL conference coming up really soon. Link is there in the slide. Check it out. It's going to be a lot of solid content, especially in the enterprise domain. But even if you're not in the enterprise domain, highly recommend checking it out. We have guests like LinkedIn, Optum, Goldman Sachs, and this car company I just heard about called Mercedes-Benz. They seem pretty cool. So, you know, lots of good content there, lots of real world applications of Hasura and GraphQL. So good content there. Check it out. And more detail on the site along with sessions and all of that. So sign up and I'll see you there. So far, this year is almost done. We're getting there. Our last community call will be December 15th. So skipping November a little bit, bouncing right into December, and that will be our wrap up for 2022. So be sure to sign up and join us for that call. And then as far as these conversations are concerned, I would love to continue talking to all of you, elaborating on those ideas that Daniel has been putting in chat via Discord. Our Discord is discord.com/invite/Hasura. The link is in the chat on the call too. We got a lot of conversations going on there. We talk about everything from architecture to GraphQL to Hasura to other technical tidbits. So lots of good conversations going on there. We would love to talk to all of you. So please join and we'll look forward to the conversations there. With that, I am wrapping up this call. It was great to have everybody join us. Thanks again to all our presenters. Andreas, that was excellent. And we will catch everybody in December.